We have been trained to not trust ourselves. We've been conditioned not to believe ourselves. And we've been specially brainwashed to never know ourselves. And this is a reality in our region. That's because our history is a history of oppression. Oppression is designed to devalue the oppressed. Oppression's goal is to break the spirit of the oppressed. What does one mean when one says break your spirit? This concept of breaking the spirit of a person means that you control their thinking until they surrender. That's breaking their spirit. As long as somebody is willing to fight, their spirit is not broken. But when a person surrenders to the context or the environment or to the powers that be and decide, I'm not fighting anymore, I have to accept what is, that person's spirit is broken. And, of course, the oppressor has succeeded. This has happened to us in the Caribbean. Most of us hate to admit it, don't want to even know it. And the saddest part of it is we are suffering from it and don't know. Broken spirits. So we have come to agree with the history of oppression that we are not capable of leadership. And that leadership is only reserved for an elite group of people who are definitely different from we are, and they are chosen somehow by the gods to be superior to us. And so we have surrendered to that context. And they even remind us to, read my lips, stay in your place. You know your place, they say. This concept is real. It still is real in your country right now. We don't talk about it. As a matter of fact, I sense it many times myself because I travel through this area of the world. There are people who would assume that I sit second class. Many times my wife and I would walk up to the airport, in some airports, and they call for first class, and we step up. And the person would repeat, I said first class. And the implication is you cannot be first class on an aircraft going from here to Zurich, Switzerland. That's the assumption. They look at my pigmentation and they assume. I think you misunderstood the announcement, they said. Well, that happens here in your hotels, in your banks, in your insurance companies. It's still happening where people wonder, what are you doing here? Problem is, you and I have accepted that unconsciously. So when we talk about we having a leadership series, most of the people stay home because they are still controlled by the oppressive idea that leadership is only for an elite group of people who are specially gifted. And I, who am just a normal person, average person, that is not for me. This is a satanic concept that you're thinking. Because the entire reason why you were created is leadership. I've been trying to convince you of that for 20 29 years. And some of you still don't believe me. Because I myself too was trapped by the same misconception about me. I almost believed them. Until one day, I was introduced to myself. And that introduction came from God, the Creator. He introduced me to myself, a self I never knew. As a matter of fact, when I met myself, I was afraid of me. Because that was not the self they told me existed. As a matter of fact, they told me, don't ever think of yourself as that self. You are not that. And so I battled this demon of self-devaluation, self-humiliation, self-cancellation. What a battle you face. This has been the plight of all third world people. Whether they are Spanish speaking, or whether they are French speaking, whether they are Portuguese speaking, whether they are Filipinos or Mexicans, whether they are from the Far East, wherever there has been a history of oppression, and which have taken the form in most countries of colonialism, this battle goes on. And our problem is we've ignored it so long, we think we are normal. So I want to talk to you for a few minutes about how to become yourself. How to become the leader that you were born to be. But this is my second segment on keys to discovering your personal leadership. I'm not talking about leading people first, because you can't lead people until you know who you are. All of my approaches to leadership training has to do with you first. You don't need a position, you need a disposition. You don't need power, you need to be empowered. And so the problem really is not about people not following you. The problem is you ain't worth following yet. Because you don't even know who you are. Leadership is therefore first personal. Then it's public. And this is the reason why we must first deal with personal leadership. This goes for children and for teenagers and for adults. We all have to discover ourselves. I want to begin with a statement. Look at this picture. I like this picture. First of all, leaders are interesting people. The difference between a boss and a leader is a boss always says, go, do that. But a leader always says, let's go and do that. And there's a big difference between the two goals. Leaders don't say go over the cliff. They say follow me, and then they jump. They lead you into the unknown because they've seen the unknown. It is called vision. So leaders are always initiators. Most of the people in the Caribbean and in Central America and South America are timid. They call us passive. Passivity is a result of training. It's not natural to be passive. It is not natural to be timid. You are trained to be timid. Your culture has trained you to not express yourself, to not vent your thoughts. Matter of fact, one of the ways they taught you it is like this. You ought to be seen and not heard. Sounds familiar? That is from our history. So the slave and the maid and the servant would be in the house. You wouldn't even know they're there. You'll see them once in a while moving. They are to be seen. Our whole countries are like that now. How dare you question America, they said. You are to be seen in the Caribbean, but not heard. We don't want to hear your opinion about anything. We will tell you what you will do. That spirit has produced a people who are so passive that they never make things happen. They watch things happen. What a tragedy. That must change now. You know how old you are? If you don't change that now, your children will be victims of other people's initiatives. It's time for you to jump and tell everybody in life, I'm not waiting anymore. Write this down. Leaders don't wait. If you are a leader, you're always willing to jump first. And sometimes you're not sure what's at the bottom, you know. But your confidence in your capacity to fly or swim is bigger than your fear of what's at the bottom. Which means that your belief is in yourself, not the bottom. That's where leadership begins. Let's talk a little bit about where this leadership lies. This is from one of my books. This is from my heart. Deeply embedded in the nature of man is the spirit of rulership and leadership authority. I'm convinced of that. Deep inside every one of you, in your nature, is the spirit of leadership. I am sure of that. Now, most people will die as followers. We know that. But all of them carry with them in their human DNA the spirit of leadership. Many times it may surface at different moments. And because of your cultural training, you bury it quickly. We call it giving you peace of my mind. That's your leadership showing up. But you are trained to suppress it. You are conditioned to never resist anything. Be nice. Cooperate. Be submissive. These words, they have trained you to believe them. But inside of you there is a natural inclination to lead. But we have been almost harnessed like a horse, where they have placed certain things in our lives that administer pain if we move on a line. They come by threat. They come by intimidation. They come by instilling fear in you if you do certain things.